Was gangster. I own Sony's publisher. Every time Beyonce and Jay-Z make a song, Michael was getting a check.
But for me, this moment transcends Michael Jackson. It is much bigger than any one person. This is a moment in time that allows us to see this societal.
There's one person who they really took down because he had too much power, and I believe that person was Michael Jackson.
Record companies really do conspire against their art. Still, they cheat, they do everything.
Why did Michael Jackson's influence become too much for Hollywood to handle? Could that be connected in any way to Oprah reportedly sending a chilling message to Eddie Griffin when he allegedly mentioned her name to the FBI?
I think that there's one person who they really took down because he had too much power, and I believe that person was Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson was the king of pop, a beloved icon whose impact went far beyond his music. But why did he go from Hollywood's golden child to public enemy #1? And why did Oprah Winfrey, one of the industry's most powerful figures, seem to make Michael her target?
The more often a person tell a lie, the more times you hear a lie, I mean, you begin to believe it. If it's told often enough, you start to believe it.
It all began with Michael's decision to expose the darker side of fame. In a groundbreaking interview with Oprah, he hinted at Hollywood's hidden agendas, cracking open secrets the industry had long kept buried.
Forgive. There's so much garbage and so much trash that's written about me that is so untrue. They're complete lies. And those are some of the things I want to talk about. The press has made up so much god-awful horror.
But for most people watching, it was clear. Oprah wasn't just an interviewer that day. She was, to many, the face of Hollywood's inner circle, and her reactions told a story of their own.
Why do you always grab your crotch?
Why do I grab my crotch?
Yeah, why? We think you got a thing with your crotch going on
I think
here.
it happens subliminally.
But was this really why the industry made him a target just as it is now making Eddie Griffin? We all know Michael Jackson as the king of pop, but few realize he was a king in more ways than one. Imagine a music industry where artists held control over their work, where real talent overpowered manufactured stardom, and where gatekeepers had no say in who rose to fame. Now think about Michael Jackson, the king of pop, who was once the closest we ever came to this reality. But after his tragic death, everything changed. The music industry plummeted into a pit of over-sexualization, exploitation, and power manipulation. Hollywood wasn't the same either. It was as if his absence created a vacuum that allowed the industry to morph into what we see today. But what if Michael was still here? What if his voice, so powerful in challenging industry standards, continued to shake up the status quo? Would the world be as entranced by industry-manufactured talent? Or would Michael's legacy have forced Hollywood to evolve differently? Instead, it seems that without him, true artistry was replaced with industry plants and fame that felt constructed rather than earned. And who did Michael threaten the most? Who wanted him out of the industry he so openly criticized? As we'll explore, the answer isn't just the usual suspects. This reaches all the way up to powerful people, names like Quincy Jones, Sony's top executives, Clive Davis, and even Oprah. But was it his war with Oprah that truly set the wheels in motion? Or was it his ownership of music catalogs and his control over names like Jay-Z and Beyonce that made him a target?
Was gangster. I own Sony's publisher. Every time Beyonce and Jay-Z make a song, Michael was getting it.
For context, Michael Jackson's acquisition of the Beatles catalog is one of the most significant power plays in the music industry's history. This wasn't merely an investment, it was a strategic move that changed the landscape of music publishing and secured Michael's financial future in ways that only a handful of artists could dream of. By the mid-1980s, Jackson had already reached astronomical success with Thriller and Off the Wall, establishing him as a global phenomenon. However, Michael's business ambitions were just as bold as his musical talents, and he had a deep understanding of how the industry worked behind the scenes. In 1985, Michael Jackson bought ATV Music Publishing, which owned the rights to most of the Beatles' songs, including hits like Yesterday, Hey Jude, and Let It Be. The deal, which cost Jackson $47.5 million, gave him control over a catalog that included not only Beatles hits, but also songs from other top artists. This decision would later generate millions of dollars in revenue each year, as music publishing rights are lucrative assets that grant the owner royalties whenever the songs are played, covered, or used in advertisements and movies. This purchase was particularly groundbreaking because it was rare for an African-American artist to hold such a significant stake in a music catalog of this size and historical importance. Michael didn't just own his own music, he now owned one of the most valuable collections of songs in the world, which meant he was in a position of extraordinary influence over the music industry. This control allowed him to earn royalties from countless artists, including the likes of Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and other Sony-associated performers who sampled or referenced Beatles music in their own work. It was as if Michael had created a passive income stream that kept his wealth growing while he continued to innovate in his music career. This move didn't go unnoticed by industry insiders, who saw Jackson as both a powerful artist and a formidable business figure. But it was Michael's willingness to use his influence to help other artists that truly set him apart. In a notable act of generosity, Michael Jackson returned the publishing rights of Little Richard's songs to him in the late 1980s. Little Richard, an icon of rock and roll, had famously struggled for fair compensation throughout his career, as his groundbreaking work in the 1950s had been exploited by the industry with minimal financial reward. By returning these rights, Michael ensured that Little Richard would finally receive the royalties he deserved from his own music, a gesture that spoke to Jackson's commitment to uplifting fellow black artists who had been sidelined or exploited by the music industry. In an industry where profit often takes precedence over artists' well-being, Michael's decision to empower Little Richard was practically unheard of. This action underscored Jackson's unique vision of success, one that went beyond personal wealth and embraced a broader commitment to justice and fairness for artists. He recognized the injustices that had been inflicted upon black artists in particular, who were often denied ownership of their creative output and left with little to show for their contributions. However, Michael's business moves didn't just make him friends. They also stirred unease among the powerful figures who traditionally controlled the music industry. By purchasing the Beatles catalog, Michael had disrupted a status quo that had long favored corporate interests over individual artists. His increasing influence within Sony and the industry at large reportedly began to make some executives uncomfortable, leading to strained relationships that would follow him for years. He became a formidable figure who represented not just artistic excellence but also financial independence, and crucially, control over his own legacy and those of others. Michael Jackson's decision to invest in the Beatles catalog was a watershed moment. It allowed him to secure royalties from a legendary body of work and paved the way for his legacy as a musician and entrepreneur. But perhaps most significantly, his willingness to share his success and fight for fellow artists made him both a hero and, for some in power, a threat.
Michael ended up getting so big that he bought the Beatles publishing. The Beatles publishing was worth so much that literally Sony gave Michael Jackson half of their publishing company just to own the Beatles catalog.
And here's where Oprah comes into the picture. Many believe she played a role in dismantling Michael Jackson's legacy. But why? The whispers started after her famous interview with him, a conversation that some claim was orchestrated to paint Michael in a certain light. In 1993, Oprah interviewed Michael at his Neverland Ranch in what became one of the most watched interviews in television history. This interview was meant to clear up long-standing rumors about Michael, such as him wanting to become white, rumors about plastic surgery, and bizarre claims like him buying the remains of the Elephant Man or having a telepathic monkey. However, instead of helping his image, Oprah's approach raised eyebrows. She asked intrusive questions.
It's embarrassing for me to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Are you a virgin?
How could you ask me that question?
I just want to know. I want to know.
I'm a gentleman.
Oprah's questions often felt accusatory, and she even pressed him on his love life and friendships with children, hinting that there might be something inappropriate. Her line of questioning made fans and even his family believe she had an agenda to tarnish his reputation. But the real betrayal came after Michael's death. Oprah supported the documentary Leaving Neverland, which featured Wade Robson and James Safechuck accusing Michael of misconduct when they were children. Oprah not only backed the documentary but also interviewed the accusers, further angering Michael's supporters and family, who felt this was a blatant betrayal, especially since Michael had never been found guilty of such charges in court.
While never forgetting any details that happened between us, but having no understanding that it was abuse, having no
The Jackson family and many of Michael's fans felt Oprah betrayed the king of pop to boost her own ratings. Michael's older brother, Jermaine Jackson, publicly called out Oprah for her involvement with Leaving Neverland, pointing out that the allegations were not based on facts and that Michael had been proven innocent during his 2005 trial. Other family members, like Taj Jackson, who grew up with Wade Robson, also expressed outrage at Oprah's actions, accusing her of using the situation to boost her ratings. Brandy Jackson, another family member, was particularly upset because Oprah had once been welcomed into their home for interviews with Michael's children, only to later turn on the family by supporting the documentary. Perhaps most notably, Janet Jackson, who was very close to Michael, reportedly still holds a grudge against Oprah. Janet, along with other family members, believes Oprah was instrumental in launching the hate campaign against Michael and tarnishing his legacy. Janet has made it clear that she feels Michael would never have committed the acts he was accused of, and the pain of Oprah's betrayal runs deep within the Jackson family. The Jackson family, particularly Janet Jackson, felt this was a blatant attempt to tarnish Michael's legacy. Janet has since demanded that Oprah apologize for her role in spreading these accusations, but Oprah remained silent.
Do you think Oprah betrayed Michael?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And I feel like she betrayed not just him.
Fans have also been vocal about their disappointment in Oprah, accusing her of exploiting Michael while protecting other powerful figures like Harvey Weinstein, who was later convicted of serious crimes. They argue that Oprah should have kept the same energy in holding everyone accountable, instead of selectively targeting Michael. You see, Oprah's ties to Harvey Weinstein have come under intense scrutiny. Their friendship spanned over 2 decades, and while some argue that Oprah couldn't have known about Weinstein's predatory behavior, others find this hard to believe. Weinstein's reputation in Hollywood was no secret even in the 90s. When Weinstein was finally exposed and faced multiple allegations of SA, rumors circulated that Oprah allegedly called him to offer her support. Although her team denies this, many believe it due to their close friendship. Oprah had been a prominent figure in Weinstein's life, attending numerous events together and often being photographed with him. This connection runs deeper than just public appearances. Oprah and Weinstein collaborated on several projects, including The Butler, a film that Weinstein produced. Oprah's involvement in the film was seen as a significant endorsement, lending credibility to Weinstein's work. This partnership extended beyond the screen, with both appearing together at various industry events, solidifying their public association. They had a very warm friendship, and the photos show. Some people actually believe that Oprah convinced some actresses to hook up with Harvey Weinstein. In fact, Rose McGowan tweeted out, "I'm glad more people are seeing the ugly truth of Oprah. I wish she were real, but she isn't." Oprah has attempted to speak out on Harvey Weinstein, but she never really gets to the point, and you can tell that she's trying to protect him.
This is, I'm always trying to look for the rainbow in the cloud, whatever is the silver lining. And so I think this is a watershed moment.
Of course, Oprah is trying to switch the narrative and make this about everyone else but Harvey. But we need to talk about the bizarre contrast in Oprah's behavior when it comes to dealing with people like Harvey versus dealing with someone like Michael Jackson. In early 2019, there was a documentary created about Harvey Weinstein titled Untouchable. It premiered at Sundance, but it didn't get a lot of media attention. And of course, Oprah didn't bring any attention to that documentary. But when it comes to the documentary about Michael Jackson, Leaving Neverland, Oprah decided to go and promote that here. Oprah decided to hold a special show after the airing of Leaving Neverland. This decision raised questions about her motivations and the selectivity of her actions. She invited some of Michael Jackson's alleged victims to share their stories on her show, but noticeably omitted any plans to invite Harvey Weinstein's victims to discuss their experiences. This discrepancy raised eyebrows and invited speculation about Oprah's seemingly protective stance towards her friend Harvey Weinstein, while choosing to shine a spotlight on figures like Michael Jackson. But Oprah wasn't the only one who seemed to have it out for MJ. Quincy Jones was instrumental in Michael Jackson's rise to superstardom, producing some of his biggest hits and helping craft Jackson's signature sound. Their early collaboration produced massive successes with albums like Off the Wall and Thriller, which sold over 66 million copies, solidifying Jackson's title as the King of Pop and marking Jones as a legendary producer. Together, they transformed the music industry, setting records and creating timeless hits that continue to influence pop music today. However, after Jackson's death, Quincy Jones began to make headlines with surprising statements about his former collaborator. In a 2018 interview with Vulture, he described Jackson as greedy and even Machiavellian, claiming that Jackson owed much of his success to others, including himself. One particularly shocking accusation was that Jackson had stolen parts of songs, especially the iconic bass line of Billie Jean, which Jones alleged was lifted from Donna Summer's State of Independence. Jackson had long been celebrated for his originality, so this claim surprised fans and cast a shadow over his legacy. Jones didn't stop there. He also expressed skepticism about Jackson's cosmetic changes and his explanation for them, doubting Jackson's claim that he suffered from vitiligo, a skin condition he publicly disclosed. Jones even remarked that he would have offed Jackson over his appearance changes if he had had the chance to confront him about it. These harsh comments from someone who had been so close to Jackson left many wondering about the deeper reasons behind his sudden hostility. Some speculate that Jones may have been influenced by external forces aiming to tarnish Jackson's reputation. What's more, financial conflicts intensified between Jones and the Jackson estate, further straining their already complex relationship. In 2013, Jones filed a lawsuit against the estate, seeking $30 million in unpaid royalties and fees, particularly from posthumous projects like remixes, documentaries, and Cirque du Soleil shows featuring Jackson's music. Though Jones initially won $9.4 million in 2017, the Jackson estate fought back, accusing him of exploiting Jackson's legacy for financial gain. John Branca, co-executor of the estate, argued that Jones was unfairly demanding payments beyond what was outlined in his original contracts. The Jackson family didn't hold back either. Michael's father, Joe Jackson, dismissed Jones's allegations about song theft, noting that Quincy was the producer on both Billie Jean and State of Independence, which would make him complicit if any similarities existed. Other family members suggested that Jones had long harbored a vendetta against Jackson, rooted in a disagreement about Grammy Awards for Thriller. According to family sources, Jackson allegedly asked Grammy officials to direct any producer awards to himself, as he believed his artistry was central to Thriller's success. While Quincy did ultimately receive the Grammy, the incident reportedly created a rift that was never fully healed. A Jackson family member even questioned the idea of forgiving Jones for his public criticisms, emphasizing that Michael was no longer around to defend himself. The world knows that Michael was the #1 artist in the world, and he didn't need to steal from anyone, they asserted, defending Jackson's legacy and his lasting influence on music. Celebrities also questioned Quincy claims. One person who was really outspoken about it was Snoop Dogg.
Michael Jackson wasn't even making dollars off of his albums.
How is Michael Jackson not making money off his own music?
Look this shit up.
Who takes that? The record label?
The record label, it's called Points. And
to him, it did not make sense that Quincy did not make yet all the funds from Michael music was going directly to the record labels.
It's an adventure for all of us, you know. We had 3 albums, you know. Did almost 100 million albums, you know.
What is even more shocking was that during one of Michael Jackson's recording sessions, a witness allegedly walked into the control room and noticed everyone glued to the glass window. On the other side, Quincy Jones was reportedly kicking what looked like a pile of rags on the floor, yelling, "Silent, you mother, I said no squeaks." Turns out, that pile of rags was actually a crouched-down Michael Jackson. They were supposedly working on Billie Jean, and Michael had been filling every pause with his signature sounds, whoops, clicks, and squeaks. But Quincy, as the story goes, wanted a more stripped-down track.
They were recording a new song called Billie Jean, and Michael Jackson had decided to fill every gap with his trademark whoops, clicks, and squeaks. Quincy Jones was kicking what looked like a pile of rags on the floor while shouting, "Silent, you mother f***, I said no squeaks."
After hours of trying to get Michael to sing it his way, Quincy allegedly lost his cool and snapped at him. Following the outburst, Michael finally sang the song as Quincy wanted, and Billie Jean went on to become the massive hit we know today. Anyway, another person who seemed to have had it out for Michael was Tommy Mottola. In 2002, Michael Jackson publicly accused his record label, Sony, and its head, Tommy Mottola, of exploiting black artists and mistreating him personally. This wasn't a casual remark, but a major statement at a press conference, where Michael didn't hold back. He called out Mottola as racist and devilish, expressing his frustrations about the music industry's treatment of black artists. Michael illustrated his claims vividly, displaying a poster of Mottola with devil horns and a pitchfork. He even held up a sign saying, "Sony Music Kills."
We can't let them get away with what they're trying to do, because now I'm a free agent. I just owe Sony one.
He was furious with Sony for failing to promote his 2001 album, Invincible, and for not releasing a song he'd written as a tribute to victims of the 9/11 attacks. Michael's outrage stemmed from his belief that record companies take advantage of black artists, forcing them to keep touring just to survive financially. He pointed out that even legendary black performers like James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr. had to keep working non-stop or face financial hardship. Michael told his audience, "If you fight for me, you're fighting for all black people, dead and alive." The situation with Sony became even more bitter when Michael's negotiations about his album rights fell through. This left him with no choice but to stay with the label, a position he deeply resented. Consequently, he refused to tour with Invincible. Michael also claimed that Mottola had once used the N-word when referring to another artist under Sony's label, further cementing his low opinion of the executive. Reverend Al Sharpton, a longtime friend of Michael's, agreed with Michael's frustration over the industry's treatment of black artists, but he wasn't on board with the attacks on Mottola. According to Sharpton, Mottola had supported black artists in many ways and had shown commitment to black music issues. He said, "I didn't know Michael was going to personally go after Tommy, but nobody tells Michael Jackson what to do." Sharpton defended Mottola, saying he'd never seen him act in a way that could be called racist. Sony didn't take these accusations lightly either. They quickly issued a statement defending Mottola, calling Michael's comments hurtful and bizarre.
In fact, Al went forward and made a big statement to all the newspapers, about what Michael had said, and about all of those things being, in his opinion, untrue. And that I, in fact, was there.
They painted Mottola as a respected executive who had always supported Michael and other artists. Sony argued that Michael's complaints had more to do with other issues, hinting that his grievances didn't just stem from Invincible's marketing or distribution. Meanwhile, other music industry figures voiced their disappointment over Michael's public remarks, with calls flooding into Sharpton's office from top producers, including Steve Stout and Corey Rooney. Despite the pushback, Michael's fans rallied around him, insisting he was onto something and that he wouldn't have made such claims without a good reason. They felt that if Mottola and Sony's treatment of him were fair, Michael wouldn't have spoken out so forcefully. Supporters argued that as a generally soft-spoken person, something serious must have happened to make him go public in such a dramatic way. Fans even speculated that powerful forces in the industry, possibly including the so-called Illuminati, were out to silence Michael. They believed that Michael's willingness to challenge Sony publicly made him a threat to these hidden powers, alleging that his boldness might have led to his downfall. To them, Michael wasn't just fighting for himself but trying to bring attention to the darker sides of the music industry, and they suspected this didn't sit well with certain people in power. In any case, it's chilling to think what Michael might have revealed if he had lived just a little longer. Could it have been the downfall of Hollywood's elites, like Oprah, Quincy, and others who were reportedly involved in controlling the industry's narrative? What's clear is that Eddie Griffin's story paints a disturbing picture. If true, it suggests a hidden network of influence and power that most people never see. But the question remains, how far does Oprah's reach extend? Was her alleged involvement with the takedown of Michael Jackson just the beginning? And why would she care so much about a comedian's opinion? Unless, of course, he was onto something real. We may never know the full story, but what we do know is this: Hollywood is a place where secrets are currency, and power lies with those who control the narrative. And as for Eddie Griffin, he might just be one of the few brave enough to speak out regardless of the risks. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.